What's up, Trash Talk Nation? Hey, coming to you with a special interview with Miss Leah. We started this page and group to help prevent soldier suicide, stop soldier suicide, promote veteran businesses, and also give veterans a platform. One of the things that kind of caught us by surprise, because we're all infantry guys, is the level of women veterans that contact us and they want to share their stories. And we never even really thought about it because, again, we didn't really see it, didn't really hear about it, except for the classes and that kind of stuff. But we have a veteran with us, a warrior, Miss Leah, and she's going to share a story, and she's being extremely brave for it, braver than 99% of the people watching it. And we're giving her that platform that she deserves and that respect that she deserves. And we just want her to share her story so that anybody else that's out there struggling, reach out to us, listen to Leah, and hopefully the message gets out and we can put an end to even all the craziness, because the only ones that can end it is us. The only people that can take care of each other is us. So without further ado, Miss Leah, thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me. I appreciate this platform. I also want to say that I have a deep love for my combat arms veterans, my infantrymen, and I spent a lot of my career around infantry, and I was never disrespected or put in an awkward position by any of the infantry soldiers that I was around. So I did want to kind of give that shout out back to you guys, because you have a very important job, and I always experience a lot of professionalism. So I guess I want to start by saying that I've always felt like I was kind of different from the girl that this happens to. I was very tough. I've always been very no nonsense. When I joined the military, I wanted to be respected as a soldier and not seen as some weakling. So, for instance, when I joined basic training, I cut off my hair, not shaved completely, but I just cut it off because I didn't want it to, be an issue in basic where I'm messing with my hair while everybody else is low crawling. But my story actually starts from AIT, being harassed by drill sergeants and following me throughout my 13-year career in the military. I spent 6 years in the reserves and 7 active duty. And I've had company commanders ask if they can drink beer out of my belly button. I've had company commanders asking me to go to their rooms. I told you I was overlooked for promotion many times. So I would work really hard. I would max my PT tests. I would shoot sharpshooter at the range, do really well. I would do all the things that soldiers are expected to do to be able to get to the next rank and promotion. And when I would go and ask my supervisor, what else do I need to do? They would insinuate that I would need to sleep with them in order to get promoted. And I never did it. Integrity is one of the things that I felt like was the only thing I could truly hold on to through my career. And so I was an E4 for 4 years. I was an E5 for 5 years. And it all came down to the fact that I wouldn't sleep with supervisors. And so that followed me throughout my career. When I was in Iraq, I was in the reserves, was a truck driver. And my unit was very good old boy. They would take care of each other, but I was an outsider. And so they didn't like me from the get-go. And then I was very loud and would tell them if I felt like they weren't following protocols or doing what was right. And, looking back, I probably could have been more tactful, but that turned into what a slut I was. And so when we were on convoys, we had our radio, and then we would have a CB so that we could just kind of chat and make sure that we're all on track, and that didn't go back to the rear. And throughout our time on convoys, I would just hear from my peers and my supervisor what a slut I am and how stupid I am, and just completely berating me for, I couldn't even tell you what. I don't really know where it came from, other than the fact that I always worked really hard to just try to be respected. And so that followed me around. And when I went active duty, I thought that it would be different. I thought that I was joining the Army that I could finally be proud of telling people that I was a part of, and that people would be more professional, that I would be more respected. Now, granted, I never would have gone to like an infantryman and demanded respect. Like, because I always held you all like in the highest regard. And I felt like, that wasn't where I was allowed, and that there was a good reason for that. But where I was working with other females and working with other males, I just wanted to be respected. And so I became the bitch, right? Because I feel like you could only be one or the other. And I had already been the slut by just doing whatever I was doing. I don't know. And so I became very hard and cynical and mean. And it didn't improve on active duty. It got worse. I had a command sergeant major who I respected a lot in Korea. And I was a platoon sergeant as an E5, which was highly stressful because I had no other NCOs in my platoon. I had no officer in my platoon. And I would be at work at 05. I would get back to my room at about 2300. It was up to me to do everything. And I took that on because that was the role that I was given, and I did the best I could with it. But I would reach out to that sergeant major kind of to mentor me, because we went through, I think, 4 first sergeants that were sleeping with our soldiers in Korea in the year that I was there. And one time that I was around my sergeant major and his driver, he asked me who else I gave chubbies to besides him and his driver. And I was like, dude, why? Like, you were the guy that I respected, and in Korea, when I got there, I thought it was really weird anyway, because you have a week of in processing. And then if you're an NCO or an officer up in 2ID, you had to come back for a week of leadership training. And so for the week of in processing, it was, hey, I'm so-and-so from JAG, and, here's this and this and this. And by the way, you're probably going to get raped while you're here. And hey, I'm so-and-so from finance, and here's this and this and this. Make sure your LES is this. And by the way, you're probably going to get raped while you're here. And it was just constant, like everybody told us, oh, by the way, you're probably going to get raped while you're here. And
Leah, what year was that?
That was 2007. 2007, yes. I went to Korea and came back in 2008. And then you go back for leadership training, and they would teach you whatever for leadership and say, oh, by the way, your soldier's going to rape somebody, and it's your fault because you didn't stop them. And I remember getting so angry, and I was like, this is crazy. I said, why are we having this talk every 5 minutes? What is the issue here? And they said, oh, well, we've got a lot of infantry guys, and it's all the booze. And I'm like, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe that that's it. Because one, I've always been around infantry guys my whole career, and they were never the issue. It was my unit. And number two, we were always drinking. Like there's always drinking when you have soldiers around. Like that's what we do, right? And that's never been an issue. And they're like, well, it's just the soju here. I don't know what to say. But it was just so nonchalant, like, hey, it's going to happen. Just be aware of it. No biggie. And they told us that 4 rapes were reported every weekend on the base where I was, which was Camp Hovey. And 1 out of those 4 were male on male. But, for every reported rape, how many go unreported? And so they gave us kind of the statistics of this is how it happens. It's usually in I don't remember now, but, usually in your 3rd to 6th month, because that's when you're kind of getting comfortable, but you're kind of lonely. And it's usually somebody that and alcohol is involved and this and that. And Nick, I want to say that at that time, my mindset was, well, these people are stupid. They're stupid for letting it happen, and they're stupid for not reporting it when it does happen. That will never happen to me because I am a bitch and I am mean and I'm tough and I can fight people off. And so I had this really set mindset that 1, it would not happen to me. And 2, if somebody tried it, then I would just be able to fight them off. And so when I got to Korea soon after, my boyfriend broke up with me because he said he needed some space. And he was in the States. So I was like, all right. And just hearing all that stuff. And then actually, when I was in processing, we didn't have locks on our doors. And I was having this really, I was really dead asleep. And I had this dream that somebody says, don't tell me the party is over. And something just didn't feel right. So I woke up and there was actually a guy on top of me. And I thought I was still sleeping because I had been sleeping so hard. And he comes in to kiss me. So I put my hand up and I'm like, what are you doing? And it was this look of realization on his face, like he was doing something wrong or he was in the wrong place or something like that. So he jumps up and runs out of my room. And I chase him out, and our day room there, it had 2 doors. So I saw him go in the one door and come out the second door, like he was leaving the day room. So I yelled at him to stop, and he stopped and turned around and went to parade rest, which scared me because I didn't recognize this kid, but he obviously recognized me as being an NCO. So I was like cussing at him, and I said, "What are you doing? What were you doing in my room?" And he tried to act like he wasn't in my room. Like, I wasn't there. I wasn't there, Sergeant. I wasn't in your room. I was like, dude, I said, I will give you this one chance. I said, if you made some sort of mistake or something, I'll give you one chance to tell me the truth. Otherwise, I'm calling somebody in here. And so he was like, well, I've already gotten 1 Article 15 for drinking and we're not supposed to be drinking. Please don't tell me. I said, go get your ID right now. So he went upstairs to get his ID, didn't come down. I had to get CQ to get him. And that turned out to be an honest mistake, but he didn't tell me because I feel like if he had told me what was going on, I would have let it go. Like I was pretty relaxed, but I was scared already because they'd been telling me like, hey, you're going to get raped while you're here. And I was on like day 3 or 4 of being in Korea, wake up with somebody on top of me. But he was messing around with somebody in the day room and he got the wrong room basically. But that, set with me like, oh my gosh, this place is nuts. So I was very angry about being there. I didn't want to go there and I didn't want to stay there. And they kind of flip-flopped me around to different units when I got there because they need NCOs. And when I finally got settled, I met a couple people. They were officers. There was a female captain and a male warrant officer. And somehow we got connected and we would just always hang out. In Korea, nobody cares who you hang out with. So we would just, like, the three of us would always go out. And I knew that he was attracted to me. And I would always just tell him, like, I'm not, like, I really like you as a friend, but I'm just not into you like that. But I kept putting myself in the position of hanging out with him, knowing that he was attracted to me. And one night we were hanging out in his room and he came on to me and I told him, like, I don't want to do that. So he slammed me up against his wall. It had me by the neck, but was yelling at me like, I care about you. What's wrong with you? Kind of like, I would never hurt you, like, with his hand up to my neck, and it was scary. So I left and I was mad, but I continued to hang out with him instead of going on and figuring out something else. Like, I was in such a bad place mentally that I kept hanging out with him. And so maybe a month later, we were all hanging out again. I didn't feel like I drank much, but I was really intoxicated, like super, super drunk. And I didn't even know what was happening. But the three of us, the female captain and he and I, went back to his room. We were going to watch a movie or something. And next thing I know, she's gone and he's on top of me. And I'm telling him, like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. And he's like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You do. This has been coming. Like, we're supposed to do this. And he got me down on his bed and I couldn't fight him off. I couldn't, like, I tried, but it was like I had zero strength. And I remember is just telling him, like, no, like, please don't do this. Like, you're my friend. Like, please don't do this. I don't want this. You know that. And he was just telling me, like, shh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I was so mad at myself, Nick. Like, I could not believe this happened to me. I couldn't, like, this was not supposed to happen to me. It happens to weak girls and dumb girls and girls that are that, bring it on themselves or whatever. Like, it couldn't happen to me, but it did. And so I was trying to make peace with that because I couldn't accept that it had happened to me. And so I willingly went back to him and consensually had sex with him, trying to make it right in my head. Like, well, maybe we are supposed to be together. Maybe I did want it this whole time, and that's why I was hanging out with him. Like, I can't have been that big of an idiot to where I kept putting myself in that situation and not have wanted it on some level, right? And I just could not make it make sense in my head.
You said a couple things that for the people watching, because I know it's going to happen, because I know the climate that we're in. I would love to say that the Army's gotten better, that the world's gotten better. But even in your own mindset, it shouldn't have happened to you because you weren't someone that brought it on themselves. And then you still tried to take ownership of why it happened to you, other than the guy was a complete douchebag. Not to mention he was a leader in the Army, and he was finally in a group of people that you thought had respected you and wanted to share, time as responsible adults. And right now I'm getting pretty just furious listening to it. And I just want to say again to everybody watching how brave you are, and keep going. The platform's still yours.
So I didn't know what to do, and I was not going to report it for sure. Number one, I didn't want to admit that it had happened to me. And number two, I didn't want my career over because I learned from AIT and on that the females that speak up, they're done. And I was already having a hard enough time, trying to find that respect and earn my place in the military as it was. So I was not going to report it. I didn't report it. I did confide in our mutual friend, the female captain, and she stopped talking to me. And I would see those two out after that. Obviously, I lost a lot of trust in other people as well that day, which I feel like I didn't have a lot to begin with already from everything I had been through. I will say that I did end up reporting it restricted once I PCS to California because they sent me to SARC training. So I spoke with the SARC representative there, and I have since tried to file MST paperwork, but they've lost all the paperwork that had my file in it. So there's no record of my report.
Can you tell everybody what MST is and what are like the rules on that or anything like that?
So I'm not 100% sure what the rules and that sort of thing are. I just know that if you have been a victim of military sexual trauma, then you're eligible to receive veteran benefits, to include counseling, but there has to be proof. So for anyone that is listening that this has happened to, you can, as long as you do a restricted report, which means that you don't say who it was and there's no investigation on it. There just has to be some sort of paper trail like anything else in the military, and you can receive help and benefits going through that. That is something that I tried to do, but again, they have denied me because Fort Irwin went through a change in how they do paperwork, and so all prior paperwork is gone. I reported it in California and just kind of went about my day and my time there. I actually got in trouble in California for standing up for one of my soldiers whom I found out had been assaulted during her in processing in Fort Irwin. It wasn't for that, but I knew that she was a brand new private, straight out of high school and basic, and she came to us as her first duty station, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, gorgeous girl, and she was taken advantage of right off the bat. She didn't tell me for a few months until I just started seeing some behaviors of her not really being engaged at work and being late to work and that sort of thing. And so she confided in me. Since I was a SARC representative, we did an investigation, but she was very hurt and it, very bothered. And I was in the process of applying for counterintelligence. So it's reclassing, but you have to actually apply for it and interview and that sort of thing. So I had gone from my S2 to working out in the field during training, and I had a corporal that was kind of in charge of the soldiers while I was away, and we had gotten a new E7 in, and I was texting back and asked about this soldier, and she said, "Oh, she never came up to work today." And I said, "What do you mean she never reported to work today?" And she said, "Well, she just never came." And I said, "Did you check on her?" And she said, "No, that's not my job. I'm not the babysitter." And I said, "No, as a matter of fact, you are. You're a leader. If you want to be a leader, then that is your job, to make sure that all soldiers are accounted for." And she said, "Well, the E7 told me not to worry about it, and I just didn't worry about it." And I said, "We know that she's going through a lot right now, and she's potentially could end up suicidal. she could be hanging in her room right now and have been there all day. And the answer I got was, well, that's her problem. And if she is, it's less paperwork that I have to do. And I went to my S2 and I said, sir, this is not okay. This female has, she's gone through all this stuff and she needs to be taken care of. I said, it's our job regardless to know where our soldiers are. But especially with her having this trauma here and not feeling safe here, we have to know where she is. And because he was buddies with that Sergeant First Class, he told me to butt out. So I went to the chaplain. It was the only thing I knew to do because I knew I couldn't let that lie. And I went to the chaplain and I said, sir, I don't know what to do. This girl needs to be taken care of and she's not being taken care of. And I am now in the field the majority of the time, so I can't watch her and I don't know what to do. So of course he kind of ran through the channels, which got them a slap on the wrist, my S2 in the Sergeant First Class. And I got fired from my position in the S2. He told me that I was a troublemaker, that I wasn't a team player, and that I was a piece of shit. And he said, you're fired. I don't want to see you again. And I had 2 months before I PCS. And I was like, okay, I didn't even know you could get fired from jobs in the Army. But that all stemmed from, her assault and just people not caring. And so like when this girl, Vanessa at Fort Hood, when that came up, that's what really made me want to talk to you because so much is swept under the rug. Like if it hadn't been for her mom, Vanessa's mom, knowing that her supervisor was harassing her, then they probably could have gotten away with just saying, oh, she went AWOL. Shut up, leave it alone. And that's a huge problem. That is a huge, huge problem. And
Bringing up Vanessa Guillen is who you're talking about. And, 2 years ago at that base, there was over 17 soldiers arrested and brought up on charges for trafficking and prostitution rings. And, for the people watching, because we get a wide base of people watching, a lot of civilians, some people, hopefully the higher ranking people are watching too. It's hard for me before I took over an HHC first sergeant job where I actually had females with me. I had a female senior medic as a first sergeant on line, and then I had more females as HHC. But the jokes I used to say, the culture that I grew up in 2006, 7, 8 in the Army, it's not an excuse by any means, but like nobody really did anything about it. Nobody said anything. It was, and so for anybody who even tries to question you, I'll punch them. But like they just don't see it. They don't understand it. And no matter how much money Congress throws at it, no how much pressure Congress puts on our leaders, it still doesn't take away from the only people who can stop it are us, the leadership that says, you know what? No, we're going to do a full-blown investigation on this and we're going to find out. And like I told you on the phone, I was under a couple EO investigations as a first sergeant. And I didn't find out about it till a little bit later, to when that investigator came to talk to me. And I was like, whoa, I'm under investigation, and a lot of people would get mad about that, but I was extremely thrilled that the Army did that my superiors gave that soldier the credit over a guy who had 10 more years in, more badges, more credit, but they gave that soldier the time of day, And so, like I said, it's hard for me at first to be like, is it the leadership's fault? Maybe, that BS answer. But I'm also not dumb enough. And then you see the things in other units when I would talk to some of my female soldiers and they were talking about coming from non-combat places and the way that they were talked to. I'm just going to tell the Trash Talk Nation that's watching this, what she's saying is 100% real, and they sweep it under the rug. And not everybody, but toxic leadership is a problem, and everybody wants to say toxic leadership is when they're not happy, and that's not true. But there are toxic leaders, and when they're put in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's just like kindling on a fire with gasoline, and just all of a sudden, before you know it, there's nothing you can do when you're in that mid-range leadership level, like nothing. And that's what you're talking about. So I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Lee. I'm just trying to explain to people who are watching who might not understand that, or might try to say like, nah, that couldn't happen. No, a colonel wouldn't do that. There's been generals that have been fired because of sexual misconduct. There's all the way down the chain. And it's only us that can stop it. The training is great. We need more training. We need the training for how to report, how to stop it. But it's still going to come down to the E5s, the E6s, the lieutenants, the captains, the mid-level guys to be like, no, not here, not now, no, stop. Like, I don't care. Not, hey, should we say anything about this? Because it might make the company look bad. And I always coach my captains as a first sergeant. I go, it doesn't make us look bad if we hand out 7 Article 15s or if we start 4 inquiries. All that means is that we're doing our job. There's 2 types of, we'll switch it to drugs for a second. There's 2 types of units in the Army, one that doesn't do drugs and one that tests. So if you test, you're going to find out people are doing drugs. It's the same thing for anything else. And for some reason that we'll bring up with the other veteran who shared her story, we're not getting a lot of views on that. And when I was talking to some people on why not, it was because I don't want to click on that. I don't want to watch that. Like, that's uncomfortable. And so again, I'm going to do my best after we're done with this to make sure your story gets out to help as many people as possible. And I know you have a little bit more, so I'm going to turn it back over to you. But for the people watching, this shit's 100% real. And there are leaders in the Army that will cover it up, period.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I actually do want to touch quickly on the fact that I'm guilty of that as well. I came up in the good old boy system, and I found out that, you can either be, for lack of a better word, a vagina, and whine about stuff and be a girl, or you can just suck it up and be one of us. And so I made lots of inappropriate comments. I'm not innocent there, but I do want people to realize there's a distinction, because I think that was one of the things that I struggled with during this whole thing is like, well, I'm bringing it on myself. And, I kind of created that persona to survive and compartmentalize that stuff so that I could just focus on my job. And I had an EO complaint filed against me in California by another white female because she was pregnant, like 1 week pregnant or 2 weeks pregnant, and didn't have a PT profile. And I made her do PT during PT hours, wearing PT clothes on the PT field, and she didn't like it. And that same female, I would have to make her run, and she would say that she was on her period, so she couldn't run. And I would say, well, you're an adult and you need to plan for that. And this is the Army, you still have to run. And so I identified, there's a lot of females that make that situation worse. They either will use the girl card to get out of stuff. They will sleep their way to get around. Like a first sergeant that I really liked in Korea, he was let go because a female came onto him, was texting him dirty pictures. And with stuff like that, I kind of feel like, yes, he was guilty, obviously, but we have to take responsibility to not do those sort of things and put other people in that situation either. So I think responsibility has to come from both sides, but also that doesn't mean that it's our fault if we're assaulted. There's a distinction there. And so I definitely wanted to get that across, because that can be really hard to get your head around. That's probably one of the things that I've struggled with the most. Like, well, I said the jokes, I put myself in those situations, and, I said really stupid things, and I made mistakes too. And it's not like I was a saint, but I never used being a woman or never used my sexuality to get ahead. I never would sleep with, anybody like in my unit, it was like I didn't mess around with that stuff because I wanted to be a professional, but it bleeds over for females. No matter what you do. And I mean, we did have a female commander in Korea who was married, and her husband was in Korea with her. They were both commanders, and they had an apartment like at Camp Hovey. And then she had a separate apartment close to our base, which was in the rear, like close to our unit. And one night she got on the bus with us and got off the bus with us and went into the barracks with one of the soldiers. I mean, females are guilty too. And so I'm not here to try to like make men the bad guy either.
Yeah, Leah, I don't think you are, but I understand the point that you're making, that women have to be professionals as well in a professional environment. And like you said, you're right that it doesn't excuse anything. So, like again, to everybody watching, it's not okay to ever touch any person, whether they're male or female, because like you said, most of the crimes on the infantry bases are male on male as far as sexual assault. And yeah, women do have to be professional, and you're right, but it's still like anybody, you're a rapist, you're sexually assault somebody, you're the scum, you're the worst people on the planet. But yeah, that's there is that responsibility. And like I said, people who don't want to, like you said, they can't grasp their head around it, that it's like, no, it's here. And sometimes the person you least expect it is the one going into a barracks, so that's a very good point.
So I met my husband in California, and we got married really quickly, kind of like you do in the Army, I guess. 2 months later, we were married. He was infantry, and at that time, I was on orders to go to Belvoir, and he said, "I don't want to do old guard." I said, "I get it," and I said, "We should go into counterintelligence together. I think you'd be really great at it. Something that I am interested in." So we went to school together, and then we went to our first duty station together at Fort Gordon. And they knew we were coming for 5 months, right? Because we had orders from school, and then we had follow-on orders. They put us in the same platoon as counterintelligence agents. There are no junior enlisted. It's E5 and above. That's it. It was at the time. I don't know if it still is. Because like I said before, it's something that you had to have experience in the military. You had to kind of know what you're doing, and then it was an application process. And we were put in the same platoon, and we had to take turns with kind of an onboarding meeting with our platoon sergeant. My husband spent about 5 minutes in there, and it took about an hour and a half with me in there. And we were very gung-ho, but pretty much everybody in that field everybody wants to deploy because you have some really cool missions with that job, and you can deploy by yourself and be assigned to folks or just kind of do your own missions. And so I had volunteered to go to Qatar for a couple months, but I came up pregnant, and my husband said, "I bet you he's going to send me in your place." I said, "There's no way, because there's 15 people here dying to go." And he said, "No, he's going to send me in your place." And sure enough, we were brand new to the unit pretty much. And our platoon sergeant came up in the hallway to us and said, "Hey, listen, you're the only two people I trust. And since you can't go, I'm going to swap a day for a day," our last name. "I'm going to swap a day for a day." And so he sent my husband in my place, and he went with one other soldier. They did such a great job. They got extended for a couple of months. And while they were gone, our platoon sergeant just kept trying to touch me in the hallway or tell me how I looked like I needed a hug, or ask me how I'm doing, or do I want to go hang out? Do I need to get away? And I'm just like, no, I don't. And so my husband came back, and he was sent to a school, came back, sent to another school. and put on Afghanistan deployment after that. And he essentially was gone, I mean, give or take like maybe a month here or there, for about 2 years in a row. And during that time, I was the only female tasked to go on a training mission to Texas, which I was fine with. And we went out there, and they asked me if I wanted to be in the barracks with everybody else, or if I wanted my own space. I said, hey, I don't need extra treatment. Like, you can throw me in with everybody else. It's fine. And I said, just give me a shower time. I'm cool with it, because we have one shower. They never gave me a shower time, but my platoon sergeant kept trying, and they put me in my own room instead of putting me with everybody else. And my platoon sergeant would kept like barging in without knocking or anything. And he would say, hey, are you naked? Are you naked in here? I'm like, no, because I'm not stupid enough to just get naked in here. There's windows everywhere, first of all. But he just kept trying to, like, he was just pushing and trying to hug me and that sort of thing. And we had sensitive equipment that had to be watched 24/7. So he was tasked to watch that one night while we were there. They hadn't let us leave the little base at all. I had been super sick with my pregnancy, not able to really eat anything. So they told us we could go out to a restaurant. I was stoked for it. And we weren't even off the base when he called and was like, come back. You got to bring the van back. You can't go out. I'm throwing a fit. Well, we ignored him because everybody was just like, no, we're hungry. We want to go out. It's fine. And he's on watch right now. And so we went out to eat, but he's calling the whole time. So we cut everything short, came back, and it turned out that he was mad because he had put booze in the glove box of the van. And he wanted to have that with him, which was, it's against regulation to have it when you're on duty anyway. So, but that's why he was throwing a fit. And I was so mad because, I was a rule follower. I follow regulations, like wear your uniform properly, do what you're supposed to be doing, and I was so mad at him because he had just pushed too many buttons, and I was hormonal because I was pregnant. So I lost it. Like, I felt like I had a true nervous breakdown. I was hungry too. So a hungry, angry, pregnant woman, I guess, that whole thing. And so I went to my commander and I told him the whole thing, everything that he had said to me, all of the inappropriate comments, all of the trying to touch me, sending my husband away for all this time. I told him everything. And so they got me a plane back early, and I was in trouble pretty much from there on out. I spent my last few years of my career just being the black sheep, they ended up putting me in the admin room. The commander would leave me there until 2100, and I would have to go pick up my baby from childcare because it closed and come back to work. And I would be the only one there besides my commander. And I was like, why don't, please put somebody else in my place here, and because Cameron is gone, my husband's gone, like, just put somebody else here. I can't do this. And instead they threatened to kick me out because I didn't have a family care plan, because I should have someone to watch my daughter when I come back to finish the commander's slideshows. And it ended up, like, I couldn't do anything right from there on out. And I didn't get, like, the mandatory award that you get when you get out of the military. There was no ceremony. They didn't even allow me to ACAP. I just ended up being so just angry and cynical and mean, But instead of finishing my career, because my husband would get the chance to call me or something from Afghanistan, which rarely happens, and I would be like, I can't do this anymore. And we had agreed we were both going to retire. And I said, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I had zero support system. The unit hated me. The wives hated me because they all thought I was sleeping with their husbands, because that had actually happened before my husband left, right? Like one of the other younger soldiers slept with an NCO. And so the other wives they just hated me and treated me awful. My unit treated me awful. And I just told my husband, I said, you don't understand. Like, I am not going to make it. And, for a long time, because he didn't grasp the whole situation, but he knew that like he was being held back from promotion because our platoon sergeant wouldn't send him to the board. So in between, when he was home, he was trying to go to the board. And because I wasn't sleeping with the platoon sergeant, he wasn't allowed to go to the board. And so that's kind of when he had a little bit of an understanding of what I was going through. But when he was in Afghanistan, he's dealing with all of that stuff. And I'm just like, listen, I don't think I can survive. Like, this is really bad. And he would just be like, oh, you're fine. It's fine. It's going to be fine. And I'm like, it's not going to be fine. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And so, I took my opportunity to get out of the military. And after that, I was just very lost for a long time, because that was my whole life. That was the plan that I had. And then it was like, well, now what am I going to do? But I can't really work around men because I don't trust a lot of them. Or I feel like no matter how hard I'm going to work, I'm not going to be taken seriously. I won't have my opportunity to, get raises and promote. And like what you mentioned before, where women, we don't negotiate our salaries. But I didn't even want to put myself, and I still don't want to put myself in that situation where it could be an issue, and so I have really struggled. I just have really struggled with that aspect of my life. But there are other aspects where I have worked on myself. Like, I've tried to go to the VA and talk to them about everything that goes on, but it's such a mess. It's like a cookie cutter, like, oh, well, we have these group meetings that you can come to. And I would be like, well, I can't come to a group meeting because I don't have childcare. I'm not going to pay childcare to come to a group meeting for the VA that I don't even believe that you can help me. And so they'd be like, well, we can't help you if you can't come to the group meetings, or you can do this homework. And I'd be like, well, I can't remember to do the homework. Plus, I don't want to do it with my husband, like, watching me, or the kids running around. Like, it's hard to write down all the trauma that you've been through. Like, the system that I have tried to go through to get help, just, I feel, has failed me also. Which I find solace in, and I want to share that. That doesn't mean that people can't overcome trauma, but you have to really want to, and you have to really work at it, because there's a lot of free resources, podcasts and audiobooks and prayer. Like, if you really want healing, and hopefully the VA is better where you are. But that is one of the things that I wanted to talk about too, and mention, is just that for the people that are listening that feel like they don't have anybody on their side, you do. You just might have to look a little bit harder, because I feel like that is part of the system that's failing us too, and that's the VA system. But if you want it, and you just work and just get a little bit better today than you were yesterday, and it doesn't mean that the pain is going to go away, or it doesn't mean that you're healed, but you can, work to enjoy your life so that it doesn't overtake you. That's pretty much kind of what I wanted to share.
So what you just talked about, Leah, was pretty much, if any like psychologist is listening or doctors listening, is, PTSD. And I everybody always associates PTSD with you have to be in some kind of major battle. You have to be in an explosion. And like I said, what we figured out with the Veteran Trash Talk and the platform is PTSD comes in a lot of different ways. And especially with the female veterans. And I know there's male veterans out there that have experienced the same thing just on the male side or whatever. And like you said, you're not alone, and you might have to look a little bit harder. That's what we're trying to do with Veteran Trash Talk is, we need the brave warriors like yourself to come on here. And so other warriors can be, yeah, I'm not alone. So the courage you showed today and the resolve you had is going to do wonders for somebody. Somebody's going to watch it, and they're going to, like you said, they're going to get better tomorrow, and they're going to be in a better place tomorrow than they were today. And as we grow and more soldiers are brave enough to share their stories, then I gotta think that'll help with stopping soldier suicide. Because you're, like you said, your whole life, you wanted to be in the Army. And when I did my soapbox a couple of shows ago about, women in the workforce, and for people to say that they don't get treated differently, need to get slapped, they're dumb. And you can really do some damage to a human being for the rest of their life. And I by no means am going to apologize for the Army. However, I can tell you that me still being active, it'll never happen when I'm around. It won't. And it's such a failure of leadership, and it's a failure of our culture. And I don't think we're going to ever cure it. But in the Army, in the DOD is one of the best places you can, because we can stop it, and we can stop it immediately. So, Leah, I'm going to give you the last word. But again, for all of the people out there that are watching, if you need help, all right, we are partnered with Stop Soldier Suicide. You can get on our group and just say something, and the community is going to respond to you. And we have brave soldiers and veterans like Leah that will help. We'll always be there for you. So again, Leah, thank you so much for coming and having the bravery and the courage to tell your trials that you went through and are still going through to this day. And, we just ask everybody to watch and to share, because what you did, it's a lot easier to press a share button, 1,000 times easier to press a share button than to do what you just did for the past hour. So again, I really, really hope your message gets out there, and we're going to do the best we can to put it out there. But Leah, last words.
Again, thank you so much, Nick, for having me. And, if I can be of service to any of your listeners, I'm here as an ear. I feel like my calling now is just to be of service to other people in any way that I can be to help, get it out. A lot of times that's the biggest struggle, is just being able to talk about it, because you feel like you don't have anybody to talk to. I'm not an expert, but I can listen. So I'm there, and I do hope that this can help at least one soldier out there, or sailor, or Marine, or airman. You're all part of the same family. So I just thank you again for this platform, and hope it does some good.